The assignment. The sleek, obsidian-hulled ship cuts silently through the inky void of space, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to all but the most advanced detection arrays. Inside the vessel's command center, Zarkax, the galaxy's most feared assassin, stood motionless before a holographic display. His iridescent scales shimmered under the dim blue light, 4 arms crossed over his muscular torso as he studied the image before him with cold, calculating eyes. "This cannot be serious," Zarkax hissed, his forked tongue flicking out in annoyance. "A human? You summon me across half the galaxy for a mere human." The hologram flickered, revealing the imposing figure of Grand Arbiter Vexthor, leader of the Galactic Conclave. The Arbiter's tentacled face writhed with barely contained impatience. "This is no ordinary human, Zarkax. Lieutenant Sarah Connor poses a significant threat to our plans. She must be eliminated." Zarkax's upper set of arms gestured dismissively. "Humans are barely more than primitives. Their bones snap like twigs, their flesh tears like wet paper. What possible threat could this Sarah Connor present?" Vexthor's eyes narrowed, glowing an ominous red. "Do not underestimate them, assassin. Humans have a knack for survival that defies logic. They are resourceful, adaptable, and utterly unpredictable. Connor, in particular, has become a thorn in our side. She has single-handedly thwarted 3 of our covert operations in the past solar cycle." The assassin's interest was piqued despite his skepticism. "How? Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their physical capabilities are laughable compared to most sentient species." "That," Vexthor rumbled, "is precisely what makes them dangerous. They compensate for their weaknesses with ingenuity and a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Connor embodies the worst of these traits. She must be eliminated before she uncovers our true intentions." Zarkax absorbed this information, his tactical mind already formulating strategies. "Very well. I accept the contract. Where can I find this Sarah Connor?" The hologram shifted, displaying a rotating image of a space station orbiting a desolate moon. "She is currently stationed here, overseeing a peacekeeping mission. Little does she know, she's walking into a trap of our making." A cruel smile spread across Zarkax's reptilian features. "A trap, you say? Perhaps this mission will provide some entertainment after all." Vexthor's tentacles writhed in agreement. "Do not toy with her, Zarkax. Connor is more dangerous than she appears. Eliminate her quickly and without mercy." The assassin's eyes gleamed with predatory anticipation. "As you wish, Grand Arbiter. I'll bring you her head as proof of the kill." As the hologram faded, Zarkax turned to his ship's controls. With a series of deft movements, he set a course for the human space station. The vessel's engines hummed to life, propelling him towards his unsuspecting prey. Meanwhile, light years away, Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood at the viewport of Outpost Omega, her green eyes scanning the star-studded expanse before her. At 32, she was in her prime, her athletic frame honed by years of military service. Her short-cropped black hair and the set of her jaw spoke of a no-nonsense attitude that had served her well in her rapid rise through the ranks. Something didn't feel right. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, a sensation she'd learned to trust through countless combat situations. This peacekeeping mission felt off, like a carefully constructed facade hiding something far more sinister. "Lieutenant Connor," a voice called from behind her. Sarah turned to see Ensign Rodriguez, a fresh-faced recruit barely out of the academy. "The latest sensor readings you requested, ma'am." Sarah took the datapad, scanning its contents with a frown. Still nothing unusual. Rodriguez shook his head. "No, ma'am. All systems normal. No unauthorized ships within sensor range." "That's what worries me," Sarah muttered. She handed the datapad back to the ensign. "Double the sensor sweeps and recalibrate for any anomalies, no matter how small. Something's coming. I can feel it." As Rodriguez hurried off to carry out her orders, Sarah turned back to the viewport. Her reflection stared back at her, determination etched into every line of her face. Whatever was coming, she'd be ready for it. She hadn't survived this long by ignoring her instincts. Little did Sarah know, her enemy was already en route, a lethal predator unlike any she had faced before. The game was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than she could possibly imagine. Back on Zarkax's ship, the assassin pored over the intelligence files on his target. The more he read, the more intrigued he became. Sarah Connor's military record was impressive, even by the standards of more advanced species. She had a knack for turning impossible situations to her advantage, a trait that had earned her both commendations and the ire of her superiors. "Computer," Zarkax commanded, "analyze Connor's tactics and fighting style. Identify potential weaknesses." The ship's AI responded in a cool, emotionless tone. "Analysis complete. Lieutenant Connor demonstrates exceptional adaptability and quick thinking in combat situations. No consistent weaknesses detected. Caution advised." Zarkax's eyes narrowed. No weaknesses? Impossible. Every prey had a weakness. He would find Connor's and exploit it mercilessly. As his ship streaked through hyperspace, Zarkax began to prepare. He checked his array of weapons: plasma pistols, molecular blade, neurotoxin darts, and his personal favorite, a set of retractable claws capable of slicing through reinforced steel. Each weapon was meticulously cleaned and primed for action. Next, he activated his chameleonic skin, watching as his scales shifted and blended with the environment around him. Perfect camouflage, rendering him nearly invisible to the naked eye. It was a natural ability of his species, honed to perfection through years of training and genetic enhancement. Approaching target location, the ship's computer announced. Estimated time of arrival: 30 standard minutes. Zarkax allowed himself a predatory smile. "Excellent. Initiate stealth protocols and prepare for silent approach." As the assassin made his final preparations, a cold certainty settled over him. By the end of this cycle, Sarah Connor would be dead, and he would have added another prestigious kill to his already legendary record. The human stood no chance against his superior skills and technology. Or so he thought. On Outpost Omega, Sarah Connor's unease had grown into full-blown alarm. The latest sensor sweeps had revealed a series of micro-distortions in the station's defensive grid. To the untrained eye, they appeared to be nothing more than routine fluctuations, but Sarah knew better. "It's a probe," she explained to her skeptical commanding officer, Colonel Hendricks. "Someone or something is testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses." Hendricks frowned, his bushy eyebrows furrowing. "That's a hell of an assumption, Connor. We've received no intelligence suggesting an imminent attack. This station is supposed to be a symbol of peace." Sarah's jaw clenched in frustration. "With all due respect, sir, symbols of peace don't need state-of-the-art weapon systems and a complement of elite soldiers. We're sitting on something big here, and someone wants it badly enough to send in a professional." The colonel studied her for a long moment, indecision warring on his weathered features. Finally, he sighed. "All right, Connor. You've earned enough trust for me to take your hunches seriously. What do you need?" Relief flooded through Sarah. "Permission to enact security protocol Zulu 9, sir. Full lockdown, weapons hot, and I want every off-duty soldier ready for action." Hendricks nodded grimly. "Granted. But if this turns out to be a false alarm, it's your ass on the line, Lieutenant." "Understood, sir. Thank you." As Sarah hurried to implement the security measures, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. Whatever was coming, it was like nothing she had faced before. But she had overcome impossible odds in the past, and she would do so again. The stage was set. An unstoppable assassin versus an indomitable human. As Zarkax's ship silently approached the station, neither predator nor prey could have predicted how this encounter would change them both, and potentially, the fate of the galaxy itself. First contact. Zarkax's ship glided silently through the void, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to Outpost Omega sensors. The assassin stood in the airlock, his chameleonic skin shimmering as it adjusted to match the metallic interior. With a thought, he activated his neural interface, connecting directly to the ship's systems. Initiate docking sequence, he commanded silently. Locate optimal entry point. The ship's AI responded instantly, projecting a schematic of the station onto Zarkax's retinal display. A pulsing red dot indicated a maintenance hatch, rarely used and perfect for a covert infiltration. As the ship maneuvered into position, Zarkax allowed himself a moment of contemplation. In all his years as an assassin, he had never encountered a human target. Their reputation for unpredictability both intrigued and annoyed him. How dangerous could these soft, fragile creatures truly be? The airlock hissed open, and Zarkax stepped out into the vacuum of space. His modified biology allowed him to survive briefly without air, and his magnetic boots kept him anchored to the station's hull. With practiced ease, he made his way to the maintenance hatch. Inside Outpost Omega, alarms blared as Sarah Connor strode purposefully through the corridors. Soldiers rushed to their positions, weapons at the ready. The lieutenant's voice rang out over the comms, clear and commanding. "This is not a drill. We have a potential intruder. All personnel, report to your designated security stations. Stay alert and trust your instincts." Sarah made her way to the command center, her mind racing. Something about this situation felt different, more dangerous than any threat she had faced before. As she entered the bustling nerve center of the station, Colonel Hendricks approached her, his face grim. "Connor, we've got a problem. The sensor anomalies you detected, they're spreading throughout the station's systems. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic display of the station. Red warning indicators pulsed across multiple sectors. "It's a distraction," she realized aloud. "Whoever's coming for us, they're already here." Meanwhile, Zarkax had successfully breached the maintenance hatch, slipping into the station's dimly lit service tunnels. His enhanced senses picked up the faint sounds of alarm klaxons and hurried footsteps above. A smile played across his reptilian features. The humans were scrambling, but they were already too late. As he moved deeper into the station, Zarkax activated his neural link to the ship's eye. "Scan for the target. Locate Sarah Connor." The response came a moment later, a biosignature highlighted on his retinal display. She was in the command center, surrounded by other humans. Zarkax's four hands flexed in anticipation. This would require precision and perfect timing. Back in the command center, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Her instincts screamed that they were missing something crucial. She turned to Hendricks, her voice urgent. "Sir, we need to evacuate the command center. Now." The colonel looked at her in surprise. "What? Why?" "Because," Sarah said, her hand moving to her sidearm, "if I were launching an attack on this station, this is exactly where I'd strike first." As if on cue, the lights in the command center flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency backups sputtered to life, casting an eerie red glow over the suddenly silent space. In that moment of confusion, Zarkax struck. He burst from a ventilation shaft, his chameleonic skin shimmering as he dropped into the center of the room. Before anyone could react, he had already taken down two guards with precise strikes to their neural clusters. Sarah's training kicked in instantly. "Everybody down," she shouted, diving for cover behind a console. She drew her weapon and fired in one fluid motion, the energy blast sizzling through the air where Zarkax had been a split second before. The assassin moved with inhuman speed, his forearms a blur as he engaged multiple targets at once. Soldiers fell left and right, their weapons proving ineffective against Zarkax's advanced defenses. Sarah watched in horror and fascination as the alien tore through their defenses. She had never seen anything move like that, never encountered a foe so utterly beyond human capabilities. But as she observed, she began to notice patterns in its movements, a rhythm to its deadly dance. Hendricks, she called out. Get everyone out of here. I'll hold it off. The colonel hesitated for a moment, then nodded grimly. Don't you dare die, Connor, he growled before organizing the evacuation. As the room cleared, Sarah stepped out from her cover, weapon raised. Hey, ugly, she shouted. You want me? Come and get me. Zarkax turned, his alien eyes locking onto Sarah. For a moment, predator and prey regarded each other, each taking the measure of their opponent. Sarah Connor, Zarkax hissed, his voice a raspy whisper that sent chills down her spine. Your death will bring me great honor. Sarah's lips curled into a defiant smirk. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not that easy to kill. With that, she opened fire, her shots precise and strategically placed. To her surprise, several found their mark, scorching Zarkax's scales. The assassin hissed in pain and anger, realizing that this human was indeed different from the others. Zarkax lunged forward, his claws extended. Sarah rolled to the side, using her smaller size and knowledge of the environment to her advantage. She vaulted over a console, putting it between herself and the alien. Computer, she called out. Initiate Protocol Omega-3. The station's AI responded immediately, and suddenly the artificial gravity in the command center cut out. Sarah, prepared for the change, used it to her advantage, pushing off surfaces to maneuver in the zero-G environment. Zarkax, caught off guard by the sudden shift, found his superior strength and speed somewhat negated in the weightless environment. His frustration grew as Sarah continued to evade him, peppering him with well-aimed shots that were beginning to take their toll. As they battled across the floating debris of the command center, Zarkax couldn't help but feel a grudging respect for his quarry. This human was proving to be far more challenging than he had anticipated. Sarah, for her part, knew she couldn't keep this up forever. The alien's endurance seemed nearly limitless, and sooner or later, he would corner her. She needed a plan, and fast. Her eyes fell on the environmental controls. A desperate idea formed in her mind. It was risky, potentially suicidal, but it was also her best chance at survival. You know, she called out, dodging another of Zarkax's attacks. For a supposedly superior being, you're not doing so well against a mere human. The taunt had its intended effect. Zarkax roared in anger, abandoning his calculated approach for a full-on assault. As he charged towards her, Sarah made her move. She slammed her hand down on the environmental controls, simultaneously venting the atmosphere from the command center and triggering the fire suppression system. In an instant, the room was filled with a freezing, oxygen-depleting foam. The sudden change caught Zarkax off guard. His species, while adaptable, was not suited for such extreme cold. His movements began to slow as the foam engulfed him. Sarah, having taken a deep breath before triggering the system, used the last of her momentum to propel herself towards the exit. Her lungs burned, her body screamed for oxygen, but she forced herself onward. Just as her vision began to darken at the edges, she reached the emergency airlock. With the last of her strength, she pulled herself through and sealed it behind her. As atmosphere rushed back into the small chamber, Sarah gasped for air, her body shaking from the cold and exertion. Through the airlock's window, she could see the command center, now a frozen wasteland with a very angry, very stuck alien assassin at its center. Sarah allowed herself a small, grim smile. Round one had gone to her, but she knew this was far from over. Whatever this creature was, whoever had sent it, they had just made a very big mistake. As she caught her breath, Sarah's mind was already racing, formulating plans and counter-strategies. She had survived this encounter, but the real battle was just beginning. And Sarah Connor had no intention of losing. The hunt intensifies. The corridors of Outpost Omega echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps and urgent voices. Sarah Connor, still catching her breath from her narrow escape, made her way to the auxiliary command center. Her uniform was singed and torn, her body aching from the intense confrontation, but her eyes burned with determination. As she entered the bustling room, all eyes turned to her. Colonel Hendricks rushed over, relief evident on his face. "Connor, thank God you're alive. What the hell was that thing?" Sarah shook her head, her mind racing. "I don't know, sir. Some kind of alien assassin, unlike anything I've ever seen. 4 arms, reptilian features, and abilities far beyond human limits." She paused, her expression grim. "And it was here specifically for me." Hendrick's face paled. "For you? Why?" "I wish I knew," Sarah replied. "But whatever the reason, we need to assume it's not alone. This could be the first wave of a larger attack." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the station. A young technician called out, panic in his voice. "Sir, we've got multiple hull breaches. Something's cutting through our outer defenses." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "It's not alone. Colonel, we need to evacuate the station. Now." Hendricks nodded grimly. "Agreed. But we can't abandon Outpost Omega entirely. The data stored here is too valuable. Then we'll need a team to stay behind and purge the systems," Sarah said. "I'll lead it." The colonel looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, Connor. But be careful. Whatever that thing is, it's not done with you yet." As the evacuation order was given, Sarah gathered a small team of volunteers. She briefed them quickly on what they were up against, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "This isn't going to be easy," she concluded. "But if we work together, we can outsmart them. Remember, they may be stronger and faster, but we have home field advantage. Use your knowledge of the station, trust your instincts, and watch each other's backs." Meanwhile, Zarkax had finally freed himself from the frozen command center. His body ached from the extreme cold, and rage burned in his alien eyes. Never in his long career had prey eluded him like this. The human, Sarah Connor, was proving to be far more resourceful than he had anticipated. As he moved through the station, he sensed the arrival of his backup, a team of elite hunters from his own species. Under normal circumstances, he would have bristled at the implication that he needed help. But now he welcomed their presence. This hunt had become personal. Zarkax's communicator crackled to life. "Primary target located," a gravelly voice reported. "Moving to intercept." "No," Zarkax hissed. "Connor is mine. Focus on eliminating the other humans and securing the station's data. I will deal with her myself." Back in the heart of the station, Sarah and her team worked feverishly to purge the outpost's sensitive data. They moved from sector to sector, staying one step ahead of their pursuers. "Lieutenant," one of her team members called out, "I'm picking up multiple hostile signatures converging on our position." Sarah nodded grimly. "All right, people, this is it. Rodriguez, Jensen, finish the purge. The rest of you with me. We're going to buy them some time." As they moved into defensive positions, Sarah's mind raced through potential strategies. These aliens were formidable, but they weren't invincible. She had hurt the first one, which meant they could be beaten. The first attack came swiftly and brutally. 2 alien hunters burst through a nearby bulkhead, their 4 arms wielding an array of deadly weapons. Sarah's team opened fire, their shots precise but largely ineffective against the aliens' advanced armor. Sarah rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts. She returned fire, aiming for the joints in the aliens' armor, weak points she had noticed during her earlier encounter. Her shots found their mark, and one of the aliens stumbled, green ichor seeping from its wounds. The other pressed the attack, its movements a blur of lethal precision. Sarah's team fought bravely, but they were outmatched. One by one, they fell to the aliens' superior strength and speed. Sarah gritted her teeth, determination burning in her eyes. She wouldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. As the last of her team went down, Sarah found herself cornered. The wounded alien advanced on her, its eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. But Sarah had one last trick up her sleeve. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, a prototype EMP grenade she had been saving for a dire emergency. Without hesitation, she activated it and threw it at the alien's feet. The burst of electromagnetic energy that followed short-circuited the alien's advanced systems. Its armor locked up, rendering it immobile. Sarah didn't waste the opportunity. She charged forward, using all her strength to push the paralyzed alien into an open maintenance shaft. As the alien disappeared into the depths of the station, Sarah allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. But her victory was short-lived. Impressive. A familiar, rasping voice called out from behind her. But futile. Sarah turned slowly to find herself face to face with Zarkax. The alien assassin's scales bore the marks of their earlier encounter, but his eyes burned with renewed determination. "You've led me on quite a chase, Sarah Connor," Zarkax said, his voice a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "But it ends here." Sarah's mind raced, searching for a way out, but she was exhausted, outgunned, and out of options. Still, she refused to show fear. "You're right about one thing," she said, her voice steady. "It ends here, but not the way you think." With that, she lunged forward, catching Zarkax off guard. It was a desperate move, born of necessity rather than strategy. But sometimes, Sarah knew, desperation was the mother of miracles. As they grappled, human and alien locked in a deadly embrace, alarms blared throughout the station. The computer's voice echoed through the corridors. "Warning. Critical system failure. Station-wide decompression imminent." Sarah's eyes met Zarkax's, a grim smile playing across her lips. "Looks like we're both out of time," she said, ready for a leap of faith. Before Zarkax could respond, Sarah slammed her hand down on a nearby control panel. The bulkhead beside them exploded outward, and the vacuum of space rushed in to claim them both. As they were sucked out into the void, Sarah's last conscious thought was a defiant one. If this was how it ended, at least she was taking this alien bastard with her. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for both hunter and prey. As consciousness slipped away, neither Sarah nor Zarkax noticed the sleek, unmarked ship that swooped in to retrieve them, plucking both human and alien from the jaws of death. The hunt was over, but a new chapter in their intertwined destinies was about to begin. One that would challenge everything they thought they knew about each other, and about the true nature of the conflict that had brought them together. Revelations and alliances. Sarah Connor awoke with a start, her body aching and her mind foggy. As her vision cleared, she found herself in an unfamiliar room, sterile and white. For a moment, panic gripped her. Had she been captured? But as she tried to move, she realized she wasn't restrained. Cautiously, she sat up, taking in her surroundings. The room was small but well-equipped, filled with advanced medical technology she didn't recognize. As she swung her legs off the bed, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Sarah tensed, ready for a fight, but what she saw made her pause. A tall, slender alien entered the room. Its features were nothing like Zarkax's. Instead of scales, it had smooth, silvery skin and large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to shimmer with intelligence. "Please, do not be alarmed," the alien said, its voice melodious and soothing. "I am Sandra, and you are safe here." Sarah's eyes narrowed. Where is here, and where's the assassin? Sandra's expression shifted in a way Sarah couldn't quite interpret. "You are aboard the Nexus, a neutral station hidden between the folds of space-time. As for Zarkax, he is recovering, much like yourself." "Recovering?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "Why are you helping him? Why are you helping me, for that matter?" Sandra moved further into the room, its movements fluid and graceful. "Because, Sarah Connor, there is much more at stake here than a simple assassination. We believe both you and Zarkax have been pawns in a much larger game, one that threatens the entire galaxy." Sarah's mind raced, trying to process this information. "What are you talking about? What game?" "It is complicated," Xandra said. "Perhaps it would be easier if I showed you." If you feel up to it, there's someone who wants to meet you." Intrigued despite her suspicion, Sarah nodded. She followed Sandra through winding corridors filled with technology beyond her wildest imagination. Finally, they arrived at a large, circular room dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy. To Sarah's shock, Zarkax was there, looking as confused and wary as she felt. But what truly caught her attention was the figure at the center of the room, a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and swirling. "Welcome, Sarah Connor," the being said, its voice resonating not in her ears but in her mind. "I am the architect, keeper of the Nexus and guardian of galactic balance." Sarah glanced at Zarkax, who seemed equally stunned. "What's going on here?" she demanded. "Why were you trying to kill me? And why are we both here now?" The architect's form pulsed. "You were both manipulated, pieces moved on a cosmic chessboard by forces seeking to upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy." With a wave of its energy appendage, the holographic display zoomed in on a particular sector. The Galactic Conclave, Zarkax's employers, and the shadowy organization pulling the strings of your human government are not enemies, as you've been led to believe. They are two halves of the same corrupt whole, orchestrating conflicts to maintain their power and prevent the rise of a united galactic community. Zarkax hissed, his forearms clenching in anger. "Impossible. The Conclave stands for order. For control," Sarah interrupted, the pieces falling into place. "Just like the puppet masters behind our peacekeeping missions. We've been fighting each other while the real enemy laughs from the shadows." The architect nodded, or at least Sarah thought it did. It was hard to tell with a being of pure energy. "Precisely. Your clash at Outpost Omega was meant to spark a wider conflict, one that would cement the power of these hidden rulers for generations to come." Sarah's mind reeled with the implications. Everything she had fought for, every mission she had undertaken, had been in service of a lie. She turned to Zarkax, seeing her own shock and anger mirrored in his alien features. "So what now?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "Why bring us here? Why tell us this?" Cassandra stepped forward. "Because you two represent the best of your respective peoples. Your skills, your determination, your ability to adapt and overcome. These are the qualities needed to expose the truth and bring about real change." The architect's form swirled with increased intensity. "We are offering you a choice. You can return to your lives, pretend this never happened, and continue to be pawns in a game you now understand. Or we can fight back." Zarkax finished, his voice a low growl. Sarah looked at the alien assassin, the being who had been intent on killing her just hours ago. Now she saw something different in his eyes, a spark of the same defiance and determination she felt burning in her own chest. "If we do this," Sarah said slowly, "we'll be going up against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. We'll be outgunned, outnumbered, and branded as traitors by our own people." Zarkax's mouth curled into what Sarah assumed was a smile. "Sounds like favorable odds to me, human. Unless you're not up to the challenge." Despite everything, Sarah felt a grin tugging at her own lips. "Oh, I'm up for it. The question is, can you keep up 4 arms?" The architect's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Then it is decided. But remember, this path will not be easy. You will face trials and challenges beyond anything you have encountered before. The fate of the galaxy may well rest on your shoulders." Sarah and Zarkax exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between them. They had been enemies, hunter and prey. Now, against all odds, they were allies in a fight that dwarfed their previous conflict. "We're ready," Sarah said, her voice firm with resolve. Zarkax nodded, his forearms crossing over his chest in a gesture of commitment. "Let the hunt begin anew. This time, we are the hunters, and corruption is our prey." As the architect began to outline their first mission, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The galaxy as she knew it was about to change, and she was going to be at the forefront of that change. With Zarkax by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The hunt for truth had begun, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. The final showdown. Months had passed since Sarah Connor and Zarkax had learned the truth about the corrupt forces controlling the galaxy. In that time, they had become more than reluctant allies. They were now a formidable team, their strengths complementing each other in ways neither could have imagined. Their mission had taken them across the stars, uncovering evidence of the vast conspiracy that threatened galactic peace. They had faced countless dangers, narrowly escaping death more times than they cared to count. But now, finally, they were ready to strike at the heart of the corruption. The Nexus hummed with activity as Sarah and Zarkax made their final preparations. The Architect's energy form pulsed with anticipation as it addressed the unlikely duo. "The moment of truth approaches," it said, its mental voice resonating with gravity. "The combined leadership of the Galactic Conclave and the human shadow government will be meeting on Centauri Prime. This is your chance to expose their lies to the entire galaxy." Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "We're ready. Zarkax and I have been through hell to get here. We won't fail now." Zarkax's scales shimmered as he checked his weapons one last time. Indeed, it's time to finish this hunt, once and for all. Xandra approached, holding a small device. "This quantum transmitter will allow you to broadcast the evidence we've gathered to every corner of the galaxy. But be warned, once activated, it will alert every security system on Centauri Prime. You'll have minutes at most before you're swarmed by enemy forces." Sarah took the device, securing it carefully. "Then we'll just have to be quick, won't we?" She turned to Zarkax, a wry smile on her face. "Think you can keep up, Forearms?" The alien assassin's eyes glinted with amusement. "Try not to fall behind, human." As they boarded their stealth ship, the Architect's voice echoed in their minds one last time. "Remember, the fate of the galaxy rests on your success. May the cosmic forces be with you." The journey to Centauri Prime was tense, filled with last-minute strategizing and equipment checks. As they approached the planet, Sarah marveled at how far she'd come. Months ago, she would have never imagined working alongside an alien assassin to save the galaxy. Now she couldn't imagine facing this challenge without Zarkax by her side. Their ship slipped past the planet's defenses, cloaked by technology far beyond anything their enemies possessed. They landed silently in a secluded area near the grand meeting hall where the corrupt leaders were gathering. "Remember the plan," Sarah said as they disembarked. "We get in, plant the transmitter, broadcast the evidence, and get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks." Zarkax nodded, his forearms flexing in anticipation. "Agreed. Though I suspect things will not go as smoothly as we hope." "When do they ever?" Sarah replied with a grim chuckle. They moved swiftly through the shadows, their months of working together evident in their seamless coordination. Zarkax's advanced senses allowed them to avoid patrols, while Sarah's knowledge of human security systems helped them bypass several layers of defenses. As they approached the main hall, they could hear the muffled voices of the galaxy's most powerful and corrupt individuals. Sarah felt a surge of anger, thinking of all the lives ruined by these beings greed and lust for power. "Focus," Zarkax whispered, sensing her tension. "We're almost there." They slipped into a service corridor, making their way to the central communication hub. It was here that they would plant the quantum transmitter and expose the truth to trillions of beings across the galaxy. As they rounded the final corner, they froze. Before them stood a contingent of elite guards, a mix of humans and aliens, all heavily armed and clearly expecting them. Well, a familiar voice drawled. Grand Arbiter Vex Thor stepped forward, his tentacles writhing with barely contained glee. "The prodigal assassin returns, and he's brought a pet human. How quaint." Beside him stood a human woman Sarah recognized with a jolt, Admiral Helena Graves, the puppet master behind many of Earth's covert operations. "Lieutenant Connor," Graves said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I'm disappointed. You had such promise." Sarah and Zarkax exchanged a quick glance. In that momentary look, an entire plan formed between them, the result of months of working as one. "Now," Sarah yelled. Zarkax leaped into action, his 4 arms becoming a whirlwind of lethal precision. He engaged the guards, creating chaos in the confined space. Sarah used the distraction to dart forward, sliding between the legs of a hulking alien guard. She came up running, the quantum transmitter clutched tightly in her hand. Admiral Graves moved to intercept her, but Sarah was ready. She ducked under Graves' strike, using a move Zarkax had taught her to flip the older woman over her shoulder. Vexthor's tentacles lashed out, seeking to snare Sarah, but a well-aimed shot from Zarkax forced the Grand Arbiter back. "Hurry, Sarah," the alien assassin called out, his voice strained as he held off multiple attackers. Sarah reached the central console, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Thanks to her training on the Nexus, she was able to navigate the system quickly. With a final keystroke, she activated the quantum transmitter. The device hummed to life, and suddenly every screen in the room, and across the galaxy, lit up with the evidence they had gathered. Recordings of secret meetings, financial transactions, orders for false flag operations, all of it lay bare for every being in the galaxy to see. "No," Vexthor roared, his tentacles flailing in fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah stood tall, her eyes blazing with righteous anger. "We've done what you never had the courage to do. We've told the truth." Alarms blared throughout the complex as the full impact of their actions hit home. Sarah turned to Zarkax, who had just dispatched the last of the guards. "Time to go." The alien nodded, a fierce grin on his face. Time to go. As they fought their way out of the building, they could hear the sounds of chaos erupting throughout the capital. The truth was spreading like wildfire, and the corrupt regime was already beginning to crumble. They reached their ship just as the first wave of reinforcements arrived. As they took off, laser fire peppering their shields, Sarah allowed herself a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. They had done it. They had actually done it. Zarkax piloted the ship skillfully, evading pursuit and breaking atmosphere. As the stars welcomed them back, he turned to Sarah, his alien features softening in a way she had come to recognize as affection. "Well, human," he said, "it seems we make quite the team." Sarah grinned, the adrenaline of their success still coursing through her veins. "Not bad for a day's work. 4 arms. Think the galaxy is ready for what comes next." Zarkax's eyes gleamed with the promise of new adventures. "Ready or not, Sarah Connor, I believe we have only just begun." As their ship streaked into hyperspace, leaving the chaos of Centauri Prime behind, Sarah felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. The galaxy was changing, and she and Zarkax would be at the forefront of that change, fighting for truth and justice across the stars. The hunt was over, but their greatest adventure was just beginning.